Hey, everybody. It's Jackie with Jackie's Recent Things. How are y'all doing today? Well, y'all, it's still hot outside, but we're going to work on some more Christmas. Christmas in July. Here we go. What I have here, you can get these rail forms from Dora Shaver. They're 22 inches long. We're going to use these to make a different kind of garland. I introduced this technique before using metal frames, but we're going to do something different with these. So here we go. So we're going to take these and put these end to end, and we're going to use zip ties. And y'all, I'm just going to tell you, the zip ties that you typically buy, the small ones with your Unique of the Creek board, I wouldn't recommend for this. They're not as strong as these, and you're going to want them to be pretty strong so they don't come apart. The ones that I have here are from Walmart, and they're 75-pound strength. So we're going to zip tie these together. Now, make sure that your zip tie things are up. You don't want them on the other side because this is going to be the back side, because you don't want them scraping the door. So this length is actually your standard mantle length, and it's actually really good. I have found boxes that I can ship these in, the 48-inch long, and it's just the right size to ship this in one piece. So you have two directions that you can go in this next step. You can put pipe cleaners on here and just add the mesh, or we're going to do it another way. The reason we're going to do it another way is because what we're going to do is we're going to use some really, really cheap garlands that I got at Walmart. I got like a ton of these on sale, and it's a 9-foot garland. And the reason that we're going to use this is it's going to make it so that we can hot glue our items in and not have to worry about tying them in. And the wood base plus this is going to give us a really good, secure foundation for using hot glue. So that's why I chose to do this. Let me undo this, and what I'm doing off to the side, I have to let it dangle off my table a little bit, is I'm trying to find the center of this. So give me just 1 second. Okay, so there's a reason that I wanted to find the center of it, because I wanted a good, secure tie-in to start. If I would have started with one of the ends, I was afraid it might slip out, so I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to take one pipe cleaner on the top, and I'm going to tie that in. And then I'm going to take another one at the top and tie it in. That way it's good and secure. Now I'm not going to have to worry about it coming off the base. So, and then what I'm going to do now, you can either do this with pipe cleaners. I'm going to continue to do it with zip ties, just every so often. I'm just going to get in here and zip tie it and secure it down. So I'm gonna go about every like 7 inches. Because this is 22 inches. One of the frames is, so I'm just gonna kind of try to break it up. Now you can definitely use a fuller Garland, but I got these so cheap that I can use 2 of them and I'm still saving a ton of money. So I really want to make sure that this doesn't move. So now that I'm at this cross section, I'm going to go under and up, kind of like on an angle, and tie it in here. Now you can get these zip ties shorter so you're not wasting as much as I am. This is just what I had here in the shop, so I just grabbed it. I keep some fairly large, long zip ties for other projects around my shop. The one thing I really like about doing garlands this way is this makes it so easy to transport it and store it. You can hang this up from your in your garage, lay it in your attic. It's just easier to deal with a garland like this. Here, I'm going to flip this around now. Just to, I'm running out of table space to push it over. So now we're at the end again. So what I'm going to do to finish this off, I'm going to tie this one in. And now I'm going to fold this. I'm going to crisscross the two pieces to cover the end, and then put a zip tie. Now I'm going to cut these off pretty close to the zip tie, because I don't want the sharp piece sticking out. So that was a 9-foot garland for 2 sections. Now this is not as full as what I want. I want it pretty full with the greenery, because I want a really good base. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to separate these over. And get them out of the way. But if you purchase a better garland and do this, you won't have to do as much. But like I said, the money that I saved, it's just a little bit of extra work to do this. All right, so now we're going to expose the center, and I'm going to take one more 9-foot garland and I'm going to go straight down the center with it to really fill this frame out. Once again, I'm going to drop off the side here. I'm trying to find center. To fold it in half. So we're going straight down the center with the whole thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. I've got my center. And so it doesn't move, I'm going to zip tie it around the end. Now I'm going to pull both sides of this together, straight down the center, and zip tie down the center. See, that's going to finish filling this out nicely and give us what we need to have a good foundation to hot glue. Now, as I'm pulling these, I'm making sure to not leave any slack in the wire. I'm pulling it as close to the frame as I can get it. When I think about doing things like this, I'm thinking about long-term decor, how to store it, because when you do something and it takes a lot of effort to make and your Christmas tree decorations are expensive, you don't want to have to replace it year after year. So I think about the long-term and storing and everything like that to make it easy. Like I said, look how easy this is to just move it around. I'm not having a garland like that twists. So we're going to cut this one a little bit shorter at our stopping point because we don't want those sharp pieces sticking out from the end. Just be careful that you don't cut the other garland. Oh, that didn't even hit the zip tie. Let me grab another zip tie here. So that really only took about 20 minutes of prep work to do that. Let me get my mesh roller out of the way and we'll put the mesh on. Because I have been known to knock stuff off my table not paying attention. So I'm just pulling this back a little bit to bring all that I pushed to the outside back toward the inside a little bit. The garlands that they have at Walmart, the frosted ones, that would be really good for this one. They're a 12-foot garland. And it's a frosted one, and it's thicker, so you would only probably have to use it once to come down the frame. And that 12-foot garland, you might be able to do the whole thing. Yeah, you should be able to. 3 pieces, 4 feet. I cut this one in half, so you should be able to run up and down each one with a 12-foot garland. All right, so what I did was I cut my mesh 25 inches, and the reason I did that is because, you know, for the long term, if I was going to do this out every year, I wouldn't care about the fray, but I just want to do a little roll in to stop the fray. Now I'm just going to start all the way down at the end and start tying my mesh in. And I'm doing it on the outside because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a basically a left to right, top to bottom kind of thing. So the trick to placing your mesh just by eyeballing it, y'all, is that once this comes up, that's 5 inches. So from the center out to the end of your ruffle is 5 inches. So I'm going to place my next ruffle right there at the 5-inch mark. So that's where I'm going to tie it into. So because this is a Christmas garland, I don't care if I don't cover up the evergreen part. I mean, when it comes to Christmas, that's just part of it. You can do this for fall, do it for Halloween, you can do it for Easter. You don't just have to hang these over your doorway. This one I'm going to actually hang at the end of my hallway. I have a large bathroom mirror I can hang it on. And the one thing I like about this is that you can use those 3M to hang it up, and it gives you something a little bit more stable to hang on to with the wood. And you don't need as much because you've got the wood. Like when you use just standard garland, if you're wanting to go straight across, you have to use more nails. Like in my door, I literally only have 3 screws and use this. That way it doesn't sag and droop. So if you're not wanting it to sag and droop with a garland, you have to use, you know, more nails to stop that sag and droop. I still think this is, you know, if you do home installs, I still think this is like the best way because then you don't have to stand there at the customer's doorway doing all of this. You go and you hang it up and you're done. You know, especially if you're in one of those states where it's hot as all get out. You can build it in the cool of your shop and then transport it. You know, yeah, it takes a little bit of planning depending on the kind of vehicle you have, but if you plan it out right to be able to piece it back together, it wouldn't be a problem. Just be careful when you're putting your mesh on too. Don't forget you got zip ties down in there, so don't dig your knuckles really deep in there, kind of thing, because you don't want to scrape your knuckle. That one went too far to the center. That will bother me. So like I said, if you want to and you just want to tie stuff in, you can do that, and you can just add pipe cleaners, and then you'll do it about every 5 inches with pipe cleaners. I'm just going to start down here. You can also use, for ties, so sometimes you get them really cheap, just a wire garland and zip tie it on with the ties. Sometimes I get overzealous on my rolling, just not thinking. Like when I'm doing a spiral, I just keep rolling until the mesh is gone. So basically, because I've already like measured like 5 inches, it makes this side go quicker. Because all I have to do is just tie it in directly across from the other side. So I cut my mesh 25 inches. So it kind of depends on the kind of mesh that you use, how much you're going to need, and plus how long you make it. But this is going to take me about 2 rolls at the 25 inches. So if you were cutting it 25 inches, you could say for every 22 inches of rail, or each rail, you'll need 1 roll of mesh. So you can use that as your general guideline so that you know how many rolls of mesh you might need to get. If you don't want your garland this wide, you need something a little bit more narrow, you can just simply like run to Lowe's or something and get a inch square stick. It's 5 feet long. There are tons of options. kind of noticed I fanned out up there, so I'm going to fix that really quick. I don't know what happened there. Just kind of move the evergreen in a little bit, and then I'm going to add one piece of, no, I've got 2 pieces of mesh left. I'm just going to add in the 2 pieces of mesh that I've got cut left up here. If you have a stairway, a banister, you can put this on a banister. And the best part about it, a lot of people are scared of scratching their wood and stuff like that. So with this, before you even put your first bit of mesh on, go ahead and secure everything down. And then before you start working on this, take and put a complete felt back on this as well. Because the felt's really inexpensive. You can double it over if you want to. And then you don't have to worry about scratching, you know, maybe your fireplace or banister, things like that. Because that's one of the people's biggest concern is when it comes to dealing with these things with their wood is scratching it. So like I said, you could just completely flip this over and cover this with felt. So you don't have to worry about things poking through and scratching bookcases, you know, whatever. Dining room tables, you can even do this, you know, if you have a long dining room table and you want to create a tablescape, you know, you can do this as well. All right, y'all. So there's the base. And then once you get done with your base, come on back. We're going to start adding the ribbon. And the best part is once you get done with the base, which takes a little bit of time, it'll take you about 45 minutes to do this. But the rest of it goes really, really quick. Bye, y'all. Hey, everybody, it's Jackie with Jackie's Recent Things. We're going to make the bows to go on our garland. Now, you need 3 of them or 1 of them. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. But typically, when I want to make sure that I make consistent bows and they're all identical, I pull out my Pro Bow. This is the newest Pro Bow large model, and I'm going to use row D. I'm only using 5 ribbons, so that's the only reason I've got 5 pegs out here, and then my center peg. For a really good tutorial on how to use the Pro Bow, it is available on the app under Pro Bow tutorials. So I've already made 2 of the bows. There's no point in you watching me make all 3 of them. That way we can move on. So I'm just making what's called a 5 ribbon terry bow. So I'm pulling 2 pieces of wire. And then I always dovetail my ribbon to start. Now when I do my first loop on my peg, I start down here at row B. And I'll show you why I measure it with row B. I just like my tails to be about the same size as the loop. So that puts my tail about the same size as my loop to start out with. And then I'll gradually go up. So I'm just wrapping the wire, I'm not twisting it, I'm just wrapping it around the ribbon, and then I've got my ribbon halfway up my peg, and wrapping my wire clockwise And then down on the bottom, I'm going to wrap it counterclockwise. And then I'm going to tuck that little bit underneath there because we're done with this wire. So I think here's where people kind of get confused. You're making your bow from the top down. So you need to plan your ribbon accordingly on how you want it from the top down. So you're going to move this one tail out of the way, make a loop over this one. And what I do is I hold it because it slides. When you first start making the bow, it slides. So I hold the wire in the center, and then you pull it over, and then you want to pinch your ribbon together, and you want to give it a 180 twist. So at this point, the bad side of the ribbon is facing you. And then you want to pop your ribbon over that other peg for your loop. And once again, you're going to do a 180 twist. The bad side of the ribbon is facing you. So here's where your second wire comes in. You're going to put it all the way under all your ribbon. Come around to this side of the peg with your wire, and then tie it. And then to keep it consistent, I measure out to row B and cut my tail. You can use 2.5-inch ribbon. I'm using 1.5 to start mine. You can alternate your ribbons however you choose. It's a personal preference. Like I said, there is a really good tutorial here on the app under the Provo tutorials that has a better camera angle so you can see better exactly what I'm doing with my hands down here and everything like that. Well, there's a break in the ribbon, y'all. So every Christmas, what I do is I have like a huge collection of Christmas decor, and I try to repurpose it throughout my house, sometimes combine it to change things up. So I have elves and stuff like that. So this year I'm actually adding to my decor by doing this. And this is going to go at the end of my hallway upstairs. And that's where I'm going to have my elf theme at this year. My tree downstairs this year is going to be a candy theme. It'll be the first year that I've done cupcakes and such on my tree. And what I typically like to do is buy all my items on sale the year before and plan it far in advance. Okay, so this is where the other wire comes in to finish up. I cut off the other wire because we don't need it anymore. This is our finishing wire to tighten our bow up and cinch it up so it'll lay nicely. Like I said, I made the other two bows because there was no point in you watching me make all three of them for this project, because you'll be able to go back and hit replay. So let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole garland again. I zoomed in so you can see the bow. But let's get zoomed out here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put the first bow in the middle. The middle is going to be super easy to find. It's right here. So that's where I'm aiming for. And you just need to decide, well, do you want your bow to sit up higher for tails, in the middle? You know, you just have to decide where you want it to sit. I think I'm going to want to add faux tails, so I'm going to want mine to sit up a little bit higher. It's actually been a while since I used wire to make a bow, so it was a little bit difficult, kind of out of practice there. And I missed the other side, so my bow will move. We don't want that. Now, I don't want to have a sharp piece, so what I do with these is I'm just going to tuck this out of the way. And I didn't have to flip it over. I just wanted to show you what I was doing, because I'm going to do the same thing down here. And once again, I'm going toward the top. I'm going to take my leftover wire and tuck it in. If you need to, because of hand strength, when you make your bow, you can finish it off, use your last wire. You can use a pipe cleaner. And once again, I'm just tucking those wires in. The other advantage to tucking the wires into is that it lets you just come back and maybe do a simple fresh up on your arrangement and keep it longer, just by changing the bow out. And it's a good thing to suggest to a customer too, because you can sell the bows. And then they can take them off and just change them out. So if you have a customer that you know likes something new every year, but doesn't want to spend the money, because the bow is going to give it the most dramatic effect as the change, as opposed to even the little ribbons and stuff like that that we add in. So when I'm fluffing my bow up, I'm trying to make sure that there's a good balance of where my loops and my tails. So see, I've got 2 loops right here, so I made sure I pulled that time a tail in between. sometimes you have to just give a really good pull on your ribbon to get it exactly where you want to, and that's okay. You're not going to break anything. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add my elves. And the reason I'm doing it like this, normally I would add ribbons and stuff like that, but for this, I want to try to not use as much product as possible. So because my bows take up so much space, and my elves, they're going to take up quite a bit of space. So I want to go ahead and add them. Now the elves I got from General Wholesale. And there's a little pull right here, but that doesn't exactly go with where I'm wanting my elves to go. Oh, and I just pulled my bow loose. I pulled on it too hard, y'all. I could tell it was too far to the outside and I just wanted to move it. And the reason I could tell was because of the distance between this bow and that bow where my elf was sitting. See how close those are? So that's what I was trying to readjust for. Much better. Tie that a couple more times this time. Okay, so here's the issue. So when I go to put my elves in, the rails basically are hitting a little bit too low. So I'm going to grab the hat because I have red pipe cleaners. So I'm going to use the hat as my attachment point for my elves. And I've got a metal hole punch that's going to make quick work of that. You can get the metal hole bunch at Michael's or Hobby Lobby in the jewelry section. So I'm going to put this pretty low so it'll be fairly discreet. The good thing about metal is you don't have to put your hole over that far, which makes it even easier to be discreet, because if you tie it tightly, it's not going to rip. It's metal. So I kind of want to give them a little tilt to give them a little personality. So I wrapped this one around the bottom of the rail, bottom section. So this one I'm going to wrap around the top, so it'll have that tilt and it won't move. And the mesh and the evergreen is going to keep it afloat, so it's kind of it's a little bit difficult for me to pull it down flat to the frame. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mirror it this way and go to the bottom rail first. And then this is going to go to the top. And that's what's going to keep my elves tilted from moving. where the fun starts, and we really get to start loading this up with our goodies. So because we've already taken up a lot of space with our items between our bows and stuff, I'm really wanting to add tails to this. And sometimes that's not the easiest decision to make. So I want to show you how easy it is to add tails after the fact, and it's okay. I kind of personally like the faux tails just a little bit better, because they seem to fan out better to me than when making them into the bow. So I'm going to stack all my ribbons up here that I used in my bow. And I'm going to stack them up in the same order that I used them in, because I'm just going to pull them all at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take my hand and use it to measure. So I'm just going to go, okay, so that's 6 inches. So I wanted a little bit, my tail is a little bit longer, so that's 6 inches. So I'm going to use an 8 inch, so I got to cut my tail 16 inches to get the desired drop down, because I don't want it too low, but I want it to come down. So I'm going to cut these 16 inches. And you don't have to stack these up like I'm doing. I'm just doing it because they'll make it go quicker once I get them all stacked up. So that's my 16 inches. I'm still not quite happy, so I'm going to give it another 4 inches just to make sure I have the length that I want. Because I can always cut a little off, but it's kind of hard to go back and add more. So basically I've decided to cut them 20 inches. So I'm going to grab 3 pipe cleaners, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather up all my ribbons, and I'm just going to fold them in half, and I'm going to gather this up like I would regular ribbon when I'm doing tails. And take my pipe cleaner, wrap it around. Set that to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and do this so my ribbons don't fall apart. Like I said, I kind of prefer to do this because I have found the tails just like fan out better and they look better to me. go ahead and make my mess by dovetailing my tails. Oh, that's a kick in the teeth, y'all. There's a bad place in my ribbon. And it's so far up I can't even fix it. So my math is off today, y'all. It was 24 inches that I cut my tails, not 20 inches. So all that we do to add these tails is we're going to come up underneath our bow in the center and just tie them in. So I don't know if you can tell what I mean by watching about how much better the tails fan out. And just to let you know, my tails are hitting the center rail as I'm putting them in. if you decorate your home for the holidays, now is a good time to start the prep work for it. I wouldn't necessarily hang it up, but you can start the prep work and start setting things aside, especially during the down season if you do this for a business. That way you'll have all your goodies ready to throw up and decorate when the time comes. And you're not stressed about doing that plus. I also think if you do it for a business, gives you a break from the monotony of whatever you're doing to actually focus on something going on and do something for yourself. So for years now, I've kind of put peppermint pieces, and I have these, which I've made here in the group and shown how to make. I've used those to decorate with in my living room for a couple years now, but they're going to go to the end of the hall. Basically, it's just about time to cycle them out of my house because I've been using them for so long now. So they're going to move to the end of the hall just for another decoration this year, and to start phasing them out. But this is the first year that I have decorated my hall. So I'm just slowly getting to where every room in the house, so you know, it's just like it'll gradually all go around my house. All right. So I've accidentally created a ribbon mess here. Let me get this out of the way real quick. So the ornament balls that I have chosen are red and white. So my dominant ribbon that I'm going to want is going to be a lime green. And then just so stuff stands out from my bow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in a different ribbon. So I'm going to be using this and a smaller Harlequin ribbon. One second. So to start filling this out, I'm going to make bows by hand. That way it just kind of goes quicker. And then that way, using the bow, it's going to take up more space so that it fills out quicker. I think the more that you take your decorations and move them around your house and repurpose them, the fresher it even stays for you longer than putting them in the same place every single year. Just to avoid, you know, creating kind of like a humdrum for yourself. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going where and grabbing the ties or the evergreen where I tied the mesh in, and I'm using those to place the ribbon. And I'm going to pull this one in to break up some of the, to pull more of the red, green, and lime in together. I would say I'm doing about a 6-inch loop. So as I come around the top, I just want to make sure that my ribbons are not like touching each other, so I'm going to rotate them differently. That way they're not up and down directly top from each other. Now, if you wanted to just go in and do ribbon tails from the start, you can. But when something is so big, you just kind of got to stop and say, how can I make a big statement with less product? I've had this Harlequin for a long time. I got a big, huge, actually got 2 rolls of it when I found it. I haven't seen it available anywhere else. Because I know some of y'all will be messaging me later on, Jackie, where'd you get that? I've had it for a long time. And definitely when it comes to decorating for Christmas, I'm all about getting 50-yard rolls. I want to make sure that I don't run out of ribbon when I'm decorating, because y'all know I use a lot of ribbon. Ribbon's a great way to put a lot of big statements out there really fast. A lot of color, especially on a tree. It's really good for filling up a little space. And ribbon by far is a trend that isn't going to change anytime soon. So it's a safe choice year after year after year. And if you're able to plan and get it on sale, that's just like a total bonus, folks. Okay, so let's get in our final little pieces that's going to add a little decoration. Of course, it's fine the way it is. You don't have to add anything else if you don't want to, by far. But I want to add some ornaments to give it a little holiday cheer. And I like to add those in very asymmetrical. I like to add them in to where they kind of mirror each other. And it's balanced. That's just, you know, my preference. Me personally, you can add them in, you know, however you want. I'm a balanced person. I can't help that. But the good thing is, because it's evergreen base, we don't really have to go to that much trouble to secure these in. We're just going to do some hot glue wonder with them. And we're just going to make sure that they hit the evergreen. So I am being very liberal with the hot glue to make sure it really grabs onto the evergreen. And it's not going to go anywhere. See how easy this is to maneuver, to be able to sit down and do it. I'm not having to run up and down the garland. I just pick it up and turn it, and I haven't messed anything up. And then my last little thing to add a little holiday, more little cheer and to keep it whimsy. I love floral picks for this. Some wispy ones. These you can get at your craft outlet. So I'm going to put 5 along the top. picks all facing the same direction. So I kind of alternate them back and forth. I wouldn't necessarily worry about how they're placed. Know where you're going to place them, and then you can come back and adjust them later. Just let them get sit in there, and then you can come back and make them bigger so they can be seen more, or smaller, or shorter, or you know, whatever you need to do so that they stand out. After the glue cools. I'm going to add 5 more at the bottom. Because I'm going to make sure that they're facing the opposite way the curl is of the ones at the top. Whoops. Got my hand in the hot glue, y'all. Good thing it was on low. Yep, I got my hand in there good, y'all. Let's try to not do that. So I'm making sure every time I'm hitting evergreen with my hot glue. That's really, really important so my stuff doesn't come out unexpectedly. So because this is the bottom, I might drop these down a little bit lower to give it a little bit of more length. Plus to go kind of below the tails a little bit. balance things out, put it the way it goes on the way. So overall, once you start this project, it'll probably take you a couple hours. But the good thing is it's actually a project that you can break apart into sections and time. You know, like make the bows one day, set them to the side, and then, you know, spend one day pulling it all together. Those are kind of my favorite projects, are ones that, you know, it doesn't have to sit down and do it today and you've got a big mess. It's not the case with doing these. You can break them apart and feel zero guilt because there's not going to be anything in your way, and not feel time crunch that you have to finish it today because you've got this big mess of stuff around your house. So I hope y'all enjoy this as a different perspective and something else that you could do with rail forms. Another way that you can use the wooden rails to, you know, make a garland, because this is going to be super easy to hang up. Just a couple of 3M hooks and they don't damage, you know, anything, and it's hung up. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I hope y'all have a great rest of the day. Bye, y'all.